Developing interpersonal relationship. The development of successful working relationship takes time. No one can cultivate such a relationship with another person without going through a long, arduous process that usually takes months or years to develop. The development of a working relationship occurs in the following sequence. The initial contact process produces a set of impressions and attitudes in each towards the other. A favorable mutual impressions is needed to develop a long term relationship. Second is a possible impression opens the door for a long term working relationship. When this occurs, the interacting parties develop a set of mutually agreeable expectations regarding their roles, performance, and relationships. Third is the interacting parties makes continuous attempts to meet each other's expectations. Failures to carry out this psychological contract will probably terminate the relationship. Fourth is mutually trust and influence develop as a result of meeting the psychological contract, and this ensures the continuation of the relationship. In this section, we are going to discuss in brief the four stages of developing interpersonal relationship. In that four stages, first is forming firm impressions. Second is developing mutual expectations. Third is honoring psychological contacts. And the fourth is developing trust and influence. We'll know about the first in brief. Forming first impression. First impression through thou after inaccurate the are lasting impressions. First impressions are lasting because they influence the way in which people see subsequent data about the perceived object on or person. So whether or not first impression are correct, it is important for us to make favorable impressions on other people. Initial impressions do not guarantee long term relationships, but they are essential for entering into enduring relationship with others. Many studies have shown that much of groundwork for subsequent relationship with others is laid in the very first stage of socialization. The first stage of socialization has a significant implication for those who are looking for jobs. When an organization searches for a new manager, it will probably contact between 10 to 40 potential candidates. For of these, it will probably interview between 3 to 8 people, but only one will be selected for the position. What factors help to employer to narrow down the list? The initial selection is probably based on substantive qualities such as education, achievement, job experience, and specialization references, etc., as described in the resume. But the next selection most likely result from the impression the candidate makes during the job interview. Image consultants list the following qualities which help make a good first impression. Thompson 1977. First is poise. One should maintain composure by being diplomatic and personable. Personable nervousness disturb one's poise. Second is articulation. One should speak naturally and fluently, use proper language, and add deep tones in the voice to create an impression of maturity. Third is conservative dress. Conservative dress in classic styles are appropriate for a business engagement such as job interview. Extremes in fashion should be avoided. Fourth is positive attitude without being a naive optimist. optimist, one should show the positive outlook towards life. For people generally prefer a prudent optimist to a pessimist. Fifth is knowledgeability. Learning something about the organization and its product, services, and the people before an interview demonstrates one's interest. Sixth is thoughtfulness. One should be alert and responsive, yet wait each question before responding. A hasty response can be seen as indicative of immaturity or lack of wisdom. Seventh is self confidence. In order to make other people have confidence in him or her, the person needs to appear self confident. An erect posture held high and an assertive tone of voice can help show self confidence with requisite humility. Remember that in forming first impression, your non-verbal behavior plays an important role as your verbal behavior. Read the theme paper of transactional analysis and you will appreciate that the body language associated with different ego state like nurturing parents, adults, adapted child, and natural child play a very important role in the process of exchanging of positive strokes to each other. Developing mutual expectations. When people are mutually impressed, they are more likely to enter into a long term relationship. When this happens, they develop certain expectations about each other. In work organizations, managers may expect new employees to be competent, productive, reliable, and loyal and to conform to organizational norms. New employees, on the other hand, expect their superiors to be fair, supportive, and considerate of their needs. Many of these expectations are unwritten and unspoken. People usually do not have clear ideas about what they expect from other people or from organizations, especially in the beginning of the relationships. Initial expectations are mutually very general to tend to be unrealistic. Unrealistic expectations often develop because people promises more than they can deliver at the initial stage in order to impress the other party. Parties must go beyond the stage of establishing general expectation in order to determine whether or not the relationship is satisfactory. Unless they work out more realistic expectations, the relationship becomes superficial and less meaningful. The process of working out mutual expectations involves a series of exchanges and adjustment to each other's expectations. A set of mutual expectations that is worked out and understood by the parties is called a psychological contract. It governs the relationships between them in day to day interactions. Although this contract is neither formally stated or legally binding, it serves as a basis for evaluating the quality of the relationship. Honoring psychological contracts. An effective interpersonal or work relationship cannot develop and be maintained unless the participants are willing to honor their psychological contracts. Each party expects the other to be faithful in the relationship, not to take arbitrary actions, and to be honest with him or her. There will be, of course, be times when some of these expectations cannot be fully satisfied. But when this happens, each party must be reassured that the other is acting in good faith. What do people expect from others in working relationship? In one study, Gabaro 1978, Executives expected three things from their colleagues: reliable character, professional competence, and good judgment. The character based expectations include: first is integrity, maintaining personal and moral honesty in the relationship. Second is motive, having good intentions and acting in good faith. Third is consistency, showing consistency in behavior. Fourth is openness, leveling and being honest with another person. And fifth is discretion, maintaining confidence. The competence based expectation includes technical competence, which is having the ability to perform the assigned task, and the next is interpersonal competence, which is being able to maintain effective interpersonal relationships. And the judgment based expectation includes: first is business sense, making good business judgment, and second is interpersonal judgment, making an accurate perceptual judgment of other people. Each of us has a minimum acceptable level of satisfaction. If the actual fulfillment of expectation is below that level, the situation will be viewed A to A violation of the contract. When this happens, the affected number will be send out signals of dissatisfaction in the form of joking, complaining, or showing anger, sometimes without withdrawal. If these signals are received and honored by the other person, the relationship can be restored, or the contract may be renegotiated. renegotiated. Otherwise, the association will suffer chronic discontent, strife, alienation, and eventual termination. Developing trust and influence. The result of meeting the psychological contract is an increased level of trust and influence. When the parties to the contract are able to meet their mutual expectations, the relationship produces mutual trust and favorable sentiments. The more satisfactory the associations becomes, the greater the influence the parties have on each other. Since the relationship is fulfilling, the parties will continually rely on it to satisfy their needs. This dependency permits them to exert influence on each other. The increased level of influence enhanced the each party's ability to affect the behavior and thinking of the others. When a person is able to influence others, the person becomes more effective in performing a task. The person's effectiveness is especially increased when the task requires a high degree of interactions with other people, for the influential person is capable of enlisting the necessary support and cooperation from others.